The day my uncle sold my father's 40-year-old restaurant. He stood in front of television cameras wearing my father's favorite chef's jacket. He smiled. He thanked loyal customers. Then he proudly announced, "The Brooks family legacy begins a new chapter today." Everyone applauded. Everyone except me. Because I was watching the live broadcast from a tiny apartment in Seoul, South Korea. And according to every legal document in America, I had willingly signed away my share of the family business. Only one problem. I had never signed anything. My name is Ethan Brooks. I'm 35 years old. For the past 3 years, I'd been working as an executive chef for an international hotel chain overseas. Before leaving Texas, my father hugged me and said, "Go chase your dream. I'll keep the restaurant warm until you come home." Brooks Smokehouse wasn't just another barbecue restaurant. It was Austin's oldest family-owned smokehouse. 40 years of history. Thousands of loyal customers. Generations of memories. Dad built it from nothing after returning from the army. Every brisket, every homemade sauce, every secret recipe came from his own hands. When he suddenly died from a heart attack, I couldn't even make it home for the funeral because an international airport shutdown delayed every flight. It remains the biggest regret of my life. 3 days later, my Uncle Richard called me. His voice sounded broken. "Ethan, don't worry about the restaurant. I'll handle everything until you get home." I trusted him. He was my father's younger brother. Growing up, he called me his own son. I had no reason to doubt him. That trust nearly destroyed my life. A month later, strange emails started arriving. Customers asked why I had sold the restaurant. Employees thanked me for retiring the family business. One supplier even congratulated me on the big payday. None of it made sense. I immediately called Uncle Richard. He laughed. "Don't believe everything people say online. The restaurant's doing great." Then he quickly changed the subject. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. I asked for financial reports. He claimed the accountant was on vacation. I asked for employee contacts. He said everyone was too busy. Every answer sounded rehearsed. Finally, one of our longtime waitresses secretly contacted me. Her name was Maria. She had worked beside my father for 28 years. She sent me one photograph. I stared at it for nearly 5 minutes. A giant banner hung above the restaurant entrance. Brooks Smokehouse, now proudly owned by Lone Star Dining Group. My heart stopped. The restaurant had been sold. Without a single word to me. I booked the first flight to Texas. The moment I landed, I drove straight to the restaurant. Everything looked different. The old wooden family sign was gone. My father's military photos had disappeared. The walls were covered with expensive modern decorations. Even the smell felt different. One employee recognized me. His face turned pale. "Ethan, I thought you already got your money." "What money?" He looked confused. "Your uncle told everyone you received $6 million from the sale." $6 million? I hadn't received 1 cent. Not even $1. At that moment, Uncle Richard walked out of the office. For 1 second, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. Then he smiled. "Ethan, you should have called first." I didn't smile back. "I want to see the sale documents." His smile disappeared. "They're confidential." My name was on the business. "They're still confidential." Customers quietly stopped eating. Everyone sensed something was about to happen. I stepped closer. "You sold my father's restaurant." Richard crossed his arms. "No. I sold my restaurant." Those 5 words changed everything. That night, I visited Dad's old lawyer. I expected answers. He said. He handed me a sealed envelope with my father's handwriting across the front. Read, "Only give this to Ethan if Richard ever claims the restaurant is his." My hand started shaking. Because my father had written the date. 2 years before he died. Somehow, Dad had already known exactly what his own brother would try to do. I carefully opened the envelope. Inside were 3 documents. The first was a handwritten letter. The second was a small notebook filled with recipes. The third was a notarized agreement signed by my father 2 years before his death. My father's letter began with 1 sentence. "Ethan, if Richard is claiming the restaurant as his, then he finally betrayed us." I felt my chest tighten. Dad explained everything. Years earlier, Uncle Richard had secretly tried to convince him to franchise Brooks Smokehouse across the country. Dad refused. "Our food isn't fast food," he wrote. "It's family." Richard wanted quick money. Dad wanted quality. The argument became so serious that Dad quietly changed the ownership structure without telling anyone except his lawyer. According to the notarized agreement, the restaurant building belonged to the family business. But the Brooks Smokehouse name, every original recipe, every logo, every trademark, and every signature sauce belonged exclusively to me. Dad had transferred those intellectual property rights into my name years before his death. He ended the letter with another warning. "Without these recipes and trademarks, the restaurant is just another barbecue shop." For the first time since landing in Texas, I smiled. The next morning my lawyer filed an emergency federal lawsuit. Uncle Richard laughed when he received the papers. "You already lost." "I legally sold everything." My lawyer calmly replied, "You sold a building. You never owned the brand." Richard's smile faded. Within 48 hours the court issued an emergency injunction. Lone Star Dining Group was ordered to stop using the Brooks Smokehouse name immediately. Every sign came down. Every menu had to be destroyed. Every bottle of barbecue sauce had to be removed from the shelves. Local news stations covered the story non-stop. Customers were shocked. Many stopped eating there altogether. Then things became even worse for Richard. Our forensic accountant discovered that nearly $2 million from the restaurant sale had never reached the family business. The money had been transferred into 3 different shell companies. All of them were owned by Richard's wife. Federal investigators joined the case. Bank records, emails, phone calls. Everything pointed in one direction. Richard had planned the sale for almost a year before my father died. He secretly negotiated with Lone Star Dining Group while pretending to help Dad manage the restaurant. The betrayal ran much deeper than anyone imagined. Then came the biggest twist of all. One of Richard's former business partners contacted my attorney. He handed over dozens of recorded conversations. In one recording, Richard laughed and said, "Ethan is halfway around the world. He'll never know what happened until it's too late." The recording became the prosecution's strongest evidence. Richard's own words destroyed him. 3 months later the courtroom was packed. Reporters filled every seat. Richard insisted he had done nothing wrong. Then my lawyer played my father's video message. Nobody in the courtroom knew it existed. The screen came alive. My father smiled directly into the camera. "If you're watching this." Then my brother ignored every chance I gave him. I loved Richard. But I never trusted his greed. I built Brooks Smokehouse for my son. Not for anyone chasing easy money. The room fell silent. Even Richard couldn't look at the screen. The judge ruled in my favor. The restaurant sale was declared fraudulent. Lone Star Dining Group canceled the purchase and sued Richard for fraud. The company recovered most of its money. Richard was ordered to repay every dollar he had taken. He later accepted a plea deal for fraud and forgery. He lost his house, his savings, and every business he owned. 6 months later, Brooks Smokehouse reopened. The original wooden sign returned above the entrance. Dad's military photographs hung proudly on the walls again. Maria came back as head manager. Several former employees returned because they believed in the restaurant, not the money. On opening day the line stretched around the block. Customers waited for hours just to taste Dad's original brisket again. Before unlocking the front door, I placed my father's handwritten recipe book inside a glass display case. Below it sat a small bronze plaque. Read, "A family business isn't built with recipes. It's built with trust. Lose the trust, and nothing else matters." Every evening when I lock the restaurant I look at that plaque and remember the lesson my father left behind. My uncle thought the building was the treasure. He thought contracts and money would make him the winner. But he never understood what my father knew all along. Restaurants can be sold. Buildings can be replaced. Money can disappear. But a family's true legacy belongs to the person who protects it, not the one who tries to steal it.